May it please your lordship, members of the jury, in summing up the case for the prosecution, I would refer you to the two cardinal pieces of evidence relating to the charges which the defendants face, and in support of the allegation that they both took part in causing the explosion at IWS, that is, that they were present at the scene and placed the bomb in position. You've heard the evidence of the night watchman, Mr. Bell. He has stated unequivocally that he saw both Luckhurst and Sawyer on the scene shortly after the explosion. He is, I'm sure you will agree, an experienced and reliable man who has been placed in a position of considerable trust and who on this occasion carried out his duties with commendable courage. Contradicting his evidence, you have heard two alibi witnesses, one of them a friend of the accused, the other a young man who appeared quickly to form a friendly relationship with them. Members of the jury, you will decide for yourselves which of these two accounts you prefer to believe. Much has been made by my learned friend of the non-violent intentions of the accused, especially Sawyer. He's been at pains to persuade us that it was not in their nature to handle bombs. But I would suggest to you that a person who abhors violence against human beings might well feel very differently where violence to buildings is concerned. You will recall the words of the forensic expert when he said that homemade bombs often malfunction, often go off before they're meant to. And you may well feel that in this case, though this bomb was meant to explode in the small hours when it would do no harm to a living soul, it did indeed malfunction and went off while those who were placing it were still in its vicinity. Now, turning to the other charge, that of conspiring to cause the explosion at IWS, I submit that the prosecution has proved that both Luckhurst and Sawyer possessed a hatred for the company which urged them to perform an act of violence against it. Their letters spelt it out. Something must be done. Someone ought to close them down with a bomb. The police discovered in Luckhurst's house a pair of plimsolls bearing splinters of glass from the scene of the crime. Denying ownership, Luckhurst has repeatedly refused to admit who did own these alleged plimsolls. Information, members of the jury, which you will recall he admits possessing. Sawyer cohabited in the house with Luckhurst where these alleged other people lived. In our view, these facts constitute a clear case of conspiracy to cause the explosion which eventually did take place.
My Lord, members of the jury, you've heard from two reputable witnesses who state that from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 10th of March, Trevor Luckhurst and Jill Sawyer were visiting flat number 5 at 98 Bromfield Road, Fulchester. One of the witnesses, a direct young businessman, has further stated that at 7 o'clock, Jill Sawyer was asleep. The prosecution witness, Mr. Bell, has maintained that he saw the defendants running from the scene of the explosion at 7 o'clock. I do not wish to impugn the integrity of Mr. Bell when I suggest he was mistaken. Bear in mind one fact. Mr. Bell had met both the defendants previously during a peaceful demonstration. Now, the darkened precincts of the building were still choked with dust and smoke when Mr. Bell ran out, dazed and uncertain if he were wearing his spectacles. In the midst of this chaos, he saw two running figures approximately 20 yards away disappear over a wall. My learned friend has advised you to choose the account you prefer. Members of the jury, there can be no preference here, only a decision based on the facts. On the question of conspiracy, the defendant has admitted writing 2 letters with so-called inflammatory statements. Now I ask you, were these letters written to a group of anarchists? No. A pity someone doesn't close them down with a bomb. It's a foolish statement. And written perhaps to impress a passionate and sensitive young girl. As to the question of the plimsolls, and there is a question, the forensic expert, Dr. Gold, has stated that there is no conclusive proof that the glass found embedded in the plimsolls is the same as that found at the IWS building after the bomb blast. Trevor Luckhurst has denied ownership of the plimsolls. He declines to name the real owner. Now, you may well argue that for a person facing a serious charge, to remain constant to a personal code of honor is foolhardy. But I put it to you, that Trevor Luckhurst is guilty of nothing more than perhaps misguided honor. This is a point you will no doubt seriously wish to ponder before reaching your verdict on these two headstrong, but we submit non-violent young people.
Thank you, Mr. Elliot. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the evidence from both the prosecution and from the defense, and shortly you will be asked to retire and consider your verdict. You are the sole judge of the facts in this case. I am here to advise and direct you on matters of law. If, during these proceedings, you consider that I have formed an opinion as to the guilt or innocence of the defendants, you must treat my views as you see fit. The law states simply this: it is the Crown that must prove its case, not the defense. Now, on the first charge, the defendants are accused of conspiring with persons unknown to cause an explosion. When you come to weigh this evidence on this charge, you should be completely sure of what, in legal terms, a conspiracy means. A conspiracy is an agreement between two or more persons to commit a crime, in this case, to cause an explosion. If you consider the evidence is sufficient to show that an agreement did take place between the two defendants and other persons, not before this court, then you should return a verdict of guilty. If there is any doubt as to this agreement, then they are to be judged not guilty. On the second charge of causing an explosion, you have heard evidence put forward by two alibi witnesses acting on behalf of the defendants. When you come to decide whether to accept their testimony or not, you should remember that it is up to the prosecution to disprove an alibi. It is not necessary for the defense to prove it. If, therefore, you accept this alibi evidence, you may feel that there is no other course open to you than to find the defendants not guilty on the second charge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are the sole judge. Now, you will retire and consider your verdict.
All rise.
Members of the jury, will your foreman please rise? Members of the jury, will you answer this question, yes or no? On the first count in the indictment, charging the defendants with conspiring with persons unknown to cause an explosion, have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed in respect of both defendants?
We have.
Do you find Trevor John Luckhurst guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Do you find Jill Alexandra Sawyer guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, will you answer this question, yes or no? On the second count in this indictment, charging the defendants with causing an explosion, have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed in respect of both defendants?
We have.
Do you find Trevor John Luckhurst guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Do you find Jill Alexandra Sawyer guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Trevor John Luckhurst and Jill Alexandra Sawyer, you have been found not guilty of both charges. In my opinion, you are an extremely fortunate young couple. You may now leave the box and are free to go.
Next week, Another chance for you to join the jury in assessing the facts when our cameras return to watch another leading case in the Crown Court.